One of my students, who was 14 years old, came to me and she said, on Shabbos, when we go to the rabbi's study and he closes the door, he makes us sit on his lap and he tickles us. And it makes me feel really, really uncomfortable. And I knew then that it was time for me to speak up. And in my naivete, I went to two members of the board of the shul that was affiliated with the school. And I said, one of my students came to me and she told me this. And the reason that I'm coming to you is that I also experienced something at his hand as a teenager. They wanted to know all the glorious details, which I shared with them only because I wanted to protect my student. And I didn't want it to go as far with her and her friends as it had with me. So I told them all the glorious details, and they said, we're going to take care of it. And in my naivete, I thought that meant they were going to fire him. They were going to get rid of him. But that's not what happened. What happened was, they said, we're going to have a board meeting, and we're going to ask you this time, instead of telling your story to just the two of us, we're going to ask you to tell your story to the entire board. And somehow, word of this board meeting came out, and all kinds of people started coming out of the woodwork. I had a story when I was a teenager with him, but I can't talk about it. I had a story with him when I was a teenager, but, I'm not going to go in front of the board and tell them my story. Married women came forward. Teenagers came forward. Young women. And we were made not only to tell our story to the board, but to tell the story and to be grilled by the rabbi who was the abuser. And he asked us questions like, can you draw a picture of my bedroom on the chalkboard? And I did. And he stood up in front of the board and he said, she drew my armoire over here, but really it was over here. As if that was the point. Every single one of the board members questioned every single one of us. One of them said, your father is a research scientist, and he does research in the field of pharmacology. Did you have access to hallucinogenic drugs? They accused my father of providing me with hallucinogenic drugs because they would rather believe that I hallucinated than believe that this rabbi was abusing children. They asked me if I had ever been under psychiatric care. They asked me if I was an alcoholic, which I was not. And this went on, and every single person who came forward, I believe there were about 7 of us, and countless others who did not, every single one of us were questioned like this. One woman who came forward, he came up with this whole story that it was a dream. She dreamt the whole thing. When it was all over, we were shunned. I personally was spat on in the face by one of the rabbis of the kollel. And I didn't go off the derech. I'm still here. But you certainly couldn't blame me if I did. When it was all over, he was still there. He stayed on as the rabbi of the shul, as the principal of the school. A few families pulled their children out, but many did not. The families who pulled their children out no longer have anything to do with Yiddishkeit. I'm here to tell you that the trauma of the abuse is nothing, absolutely nothing for me compared to the trauma of not being believed. If you come away with one thing tonight, please, any child or any adult who tells you that they were abused as a child, you owe it to them to believe them.